Upholding Islamic ethics, the right way forward for Madani nation. Telcos assure no extra costs in second 5G network rollout. Good evening and Salam Malaysia Madani. You're watching Malaysia Tonight and my name is Daryl Baptist. We begin tonight's bulletin with updates from the Prime Minister. Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim has pledged to uphold Islamic ethics in governance, which includes ensuring good ties between Muslims and non-Muslims in the country, in an effort to realise Malaysia's aspiration of creating a Madani nation. In a speech at the Malaysia Madani International Symposium 2024, Datuk Seri Anwar said the Grand Sheikh of Al-Azhar Al-Sharif, Professor Dr. Ahmad Muhammad Ahmad At-Tayyib, urged him to work harder to foster better understanding and good relations among the people of the country.
Malah beliau mengusulkan agar kita mengambil langkah lebih positif, berani untuk menunjukkan akhlak Islam dalam menyantuni masyarakat bukan Islam di Malaysia dan di rantau Asia ini. InsyaAllah kita akan tunaikan amanat itu dengan sebaik mungkin.
He said this at the symposium themed Islam and Moderation. At the event, Sheikh Al-Azhar was conferred with an honorary doctorate in Quranic and Sunnah Studies from the Islamic Science University Malaysia. Sheikh Al-Azhar, a former president of the Al-Azhar University, has served as the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar Al-Sharif since 2010. He is on a 4-day visit at Datuk Seri Anwar's invitation. The Auditor General's report, or LKAN2 2024, highlighted 9 audits involving 11 ministries, with the total cost of the audited projects amounting to 41.97 billion ringgit. Auditor General Dato' Wan Suraya Wan Muhammad Radzi said the audit covered projects of federal government ministries and departments as well as federal statutory bodies. Dato' Wan Suraya said in addition to reports on the activities of federal government ministries, departments and federal statutory bodies, the audit also covers reports on the management of federal government companies. A total of 64 audit recommendations were submitted in the Auditor General's report to be implemented by ministries, departments, agencies and government companies audited at the federal level. Dato' Wan Suraya also said that the audits conducted by the National Audit Department had a positive impact through corrective and improvement actions implemented by the government upon receiving the audit's warnings. Following up on audits from 2020 until 2022 through the Auditor General Dashboard portal, it was found that the government has recovered refunds, including penalty claims, outstanding rent, and collections of liquidated ascertained damages estimated at 100 million ringgit until the second quarter of this year. Meanwhile, the Auditor General's report recommends that the Ministry of Communications coordinates with interested parties regarding internet subscriptions, especially with the Ministry of Education. It said the implementation of the Point of Presence Phase 2 program should also be improved. The recommendations were made after the report found that 337 schools are still using 4G broadband or satellite technology, with a speed limit of up to 30 megabits per second, despite the completion of the Point of Presence project in these schools from April 2022 to November last year. Further review found that the Ministry of Education is bound by an Internet Service Interim Package contract, effective from July 2022 until June this year. And schools cannot make additional purchases of Internet Service subscriptions while the interim contract is still in effect. The Point of Presence project aims to bridge the digital divide in rural areas by turning schools into fibre optic broadband infrastructure hubs, enabling schools, government premises and surrounding residential areas to access high-speed broadband. According to the report, as of 31st December 2023, 599 out of 630 Phase 1 Point of Presence school projects had been completed, while 31 projects were still in progress. On a related note, the Ministry of Energy Transition and Water Transformation, also known as Petra, takes the issues raised in the Auditor General's report regarding national water management very seriously. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Fadillah Yusof said the ministry has a team to review all reports related to the Department of Irrigation and Drainage.
Kita memang dah ada tim untuk melihat segala laporan dan kita akan mengambil tindakan atas segala teguran. KSU kita dah ada. So KSU sendiri yang akan mengetuai untuk pastikan segala teguran audit diambil tindakan dan diharapkan tidak akan berulang untuk masa-masa akan datang.
Among the issues raised regarding national water management was the fact that 145 out of 712 water infrastructure development projects were delayed from the original scheduled date. It was also highlighted that the target of a 13.5% national treated water reserve margin could not be achieved by the 4 sample states visited in 2022. Therefore, the National Audit Department recommended that Petra and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability improve monitoring the completion of projects and development programs and upgrades for water sources, treated water supply and water quality within the stipulated timeframe. The Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, KPKM, has requested the National Disaster Management Agency, also known as NADMA, to implement Phase 2 of the cloud seeding operation in agricultural areas affected by hot and dry weather. Deputy Agriculture and Food Security Minister, Dato' Arthur Joseph Kurup, said the effort was part of the ministry's immediate measures to address the effects of climate change in line with the National Agro-Food Policy 2.0. He mentioned that the ministry implements a rainwater harvesting system and searches for underground water sources through a tube well system to address the lack of water resources during the dry season. The ministry, he added, also uses mulching to maintain plant moisture.
Sebanyak 251 telaga tube dan 246 pam bergerak telah disediakan oleh KPKM bagi menampung keperluan petani dan penternak untuk kawasan yang terjejas oleh bencana seperti banjir dan kemarau.
He said regular maintenance of the agricultural irrigation and drainage system is carried out every year to ensure the infrastructure functions properly, with 80 million ringgit allocated this year for that purpose. The Cabinet has approved the proposed amendments to the Personal Data Protection Act 2010, Act 709, and they are expected to be tabled in the current Parliament session. Digital Minister Gobind Singh Dio emphasised that the amendments are vital to ensure that Malaysia's personal data protection legislation aligns with global standards, changes and legal developments. Gobind said the proposed amendments to Act 709 aim to enhance policies, particularly in terms of security and enforcement, to address issues of personal data breaches and misuse in Malaysia. He highlighted that key proposals for amending the Act include mandatory notification of personal data breaches, additional compliance responsibilities for data processors, and the appointment of data protection officers. Other proposals involve introducing the right to data portability for data subjects and abolishing the requirement to designate specific locations for transferring personal data outside Malaysia. Gobind also noted that in drafting the proposed amendments to Act 709, the Office of the Personal Data Protection Commissioner also considered input and views from various stakeholders through multiple engagement sessions. 20 staff are said to be affected by a chemical gas leak reported at the Sepang Aircraft Engineering's Southern Support Zone, located at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport, or KLIA, this morning. According to the Selangor Fire and Rescue Department, or JBPM, those affected included staff from Sepang Aircraft, Mars Engineering Hangar and CAE. Selangor JBPM Director Wan Mat Razali Wan Ismail said the department's State Operations Centre received a report regarding the chemical leak at the location at 11:23 a.m. through MERS 999. In a statement today, he said 6 officers from the KLIA Fire and Rescue Department and a team from the Hazardous Material Team, or HAZMAT, from the Shah Alam Fire and Rescue Department were deployed to the location. Meanwhile, Senior Fire and Rescue Department Commander 2, Muhammad Nur Khairi Samsumin, said the Selangor JBPM were in the process of identifying the cause of the leak. Earlier, a video clip of the chemical leak incident, which showed a group of people gathered at the location, had gone viral on social media. Still ahead in our business segment, agricultural census to create integrated data framework. But before that, the Communications Ministry has confirmed that mobile network operators, or MNOs, participating in Malaysia's second 5G network will not pass any costs on to consumers. Its Minister, Fahmi Fadil, said that the MNOs have provided assurances that there will be no additional costs for consumers after the rollout of the second network.
The commitment from all of the CEOs of the telcos from the get-go has been the second network will be no worse off, particularly in terms of cost. So this was promised to me and to the ministry from the get-go in the discussions about the second network.
He said this after witnessing the signing of Memorandum of Understanding between the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission, or MCMC, and the Malaysian Investment Development Authority. The MCMC has been tasked with selecting a mobile network service provider to develop Malaysia's second 5G network, commencing with the application information package process on 1st July. Fahmi said the government is fully committed to ensuring that the dual network model promotes healthy competition in the telecommunications sector, while ensuring its sustainability and improving connectivity for the people. The implementation of the 2024 agricultural census is an agenda for strengthening the country's agricultural statistical system. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Fadillah Yusof said through this census, the government can establish an agricultural data network that includes economic, social and environmental aspects of the agricultural ecosystem. Through the 2024 agricultural census, the country will benefit from the development of the Integrated Agricultural Statistics Database, covering agricultural data that includes data at upstream and downstream levels, and combines census data with administrative data from various agencies up to the state and district levels.
Wajib pertanian kali ini memfokuskan pada 4 dimensi keterjaminan makanan seperti sasaran FAO yang melibatkan ketersediaan akses, penggunaan serta kestabilan dan kemampanan selari dengan pelan tindakan dasar sekuriti makanan negara 2021-2025 dan dasar agro makanan negara 2021 hingga 2030. Wajib pertanian 2024 akan menghasilkan baseline baru yang akan menyediakan statistik yang tempatan masa dan reliable untuk perancangan sektor pertanian negara.
He said the implementation of the census is in line with the Food and Agriculture Organization resolution, which recommends that all countries implement it with a frequency of once every 10 years from 2016 to 2025, based on the World Programme for the Census of Agriculture Manual. The price of palm oil will become uncompetitive compared to other producing countries if the windfall profit levy on palm oil in this country is not revised. Plantation and Commodities Minister Datuk Seri Johari Abdul Ghani stated that his ministry would examine and review the levy, with the findings to be submitted to the Ministry of Finance.
Let's MOF review macam mana kita boleh review benda ni, dan dia secara tak langsung dia juga boleh menggalakkan penanaman semula. Apabila produk ni jadi kompetitif, then more and more people will come and invest dalam tanah yang kita dah ada.
He said previously the cost of producing 1 metric ton of palm oil was approximately 1,800 ringgit, but now it ranges from 2,800 to 3,200 ringgit depending on the size. He explained that the cost structure at 1,800 ringgit may have been suitable for windfall profit levy, but it is no longer appropriate when the market trades at about 3,800 to 3,900 ringgit, with costs exceeding 3,000 ringgit. He also said industry players need to actively utilize the latest technology to increase production to ensure Malaysia's palm oil sector remains competitive and relevant in line with global changes. The Works Ministry is closely monitoring developments in the construction industry, particularly concerning the rising prices of construction materials and raw materials following the removal of the blanket diesel subsidy in June. Works Minister Datuk Seri Alexander Nantalinggi said that while there is a potential impact on the construction industry, it is still too early to estimate the extent of cost increases.
Namun begitu, Kementerian Kerja Raya bersama jabatan dan agensi di bawahnya sentiasa memantau perkembangan industri dan isu-isu kenaikan harga bahan binaan dan bahan mentah serta kesannya ke atas kontraktor. Jadi, Kementerian Kerja Raya sedang memperhalusi perkara ini bersama Kementerian Keuangan untuk terus memperkasakan industri pembinaan di negara ini.
He said before considering or implementing any policies, comprehensive research is necessary, including analysing the material cost index provided by the Department of Statistics Malaysia, which tracks fluctuations in construction costs. Commenting on plans to raise the G1 contractor's work value limit, given the escalating cost of goods, he explained that any adjustment to the work value limit falls within the jurisdiction of the Finance Ministry. A bill related to the welfare of gig workers is expected to be tabled for its first reading at the third meeting of the third session of the 15th Parliament, or rather on the 15th Parliament in October. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, who is also the Rural and Regional Development Minister, said this was decided at a meeting of the Supreme Committee on the establishment of the Malaysian Gig Economy Commission, which he chaired today. He said the enactment of this act is necessary as only about 250,000 out of the 1.16 million gig workers in the country contribute to the Social Security Organisation. He said the Human Resources Ministry, or KASUMA, will present a cabinet memorandum on the proposal for the establishment of the new act and various holistic aspects of the gig economy within 2 weeks from now.
Pihak ILO hanya akan mengadakan persidangan mengenai perkara ini pada tahun hadapan, tetapi Malaysia melalui KASUMA, Menteri dan KSU mengambil beberapa langkah proaktif untuk melakukannya lebih awal.
Last February, Human Resources Minister Stephen Sim Chi Keong said the government would review the need to amend the existing Employment Act 1955 or establish a new act to protect the welfare of e-hailing workers. The Public Accounts Committee, or PAC, found that the Human Resource Development Corp, or HRD Corp, has been utilising a significant portion of the levy it collected from companies for risky investments. According to Datuk Mas Ermiyati Samsudin, chairperson of the Bipartisan Parliamentary Committee, the investments were high risk in nature, such as investments in put and call options, which may expose HRD Corp to risk of significant losses. The PAC found that the amount of levy collection recorded by HRD Corp increased significantly to 2.13 billion ringgit last year, compared with 475 million ringgit in 2020. The PAC chairperson said the significant increase is a result of the expansion of the Human Resource Development Act 2001 on 1st March 2021, where the levy has been made mandatory for all sectors.
Melalui prosiding yang telah diadakan, PAC dimaklumkan bahawa terdapat sejumlah levy yang tidak digunakan oleh majikan dalam tempoh 2 tahun akan dikategorikan sebagai unutilized levy. Tempoh ini dilihatkan terlalu singkat yang mana ia tidak dapat membantu perusahaan kecil dan sederhana PKS sepenuhnya untuk menggunakan dana latihan tersebut.
Dato' Mas Emiyati said the transfer of the unutilized levy, which is then used for investment purposes on behalf of HRD Corp, was not presented in the Board of Directors meeting, despite being requested by the board members. The Securities Commission Malaysia, or SC, has cautioned the public on investment scams, enticing investors with pre-initial public offerings, or IPO, shares of companies seeking listing on Bursa Malaysia. These scams, mostly involving private placement offerings, are usually timed with upcoming IPO listings published on Bursa Malaysia's website. The SC said perpetrators of the scams, posing as agents, usually create a public group on WhatsApp to promote the pre-IPO investments. Following this, potential victims will be added to the group unsolicited. The SC said the schemes may be accompanied by fake testimonials from other investors to appear credible. Payments for the subscription will be required to be made to bank accounts of entities not related to the IPO and suspected mule bank accounts. The agency also noted that on the listing day, agents will claim that the shares have been listed and have made profits, promoting additional payments for the shares to be allotted. To date, the SC has received various complaints and inquiries from investors reporting substantial losses, exceeding 800,000 ringgit. The SC views this matter seriously and will continue to monitor and take appropriate action against such investment scam activities. China's electric vehicle giant BYD opened a factory in Thailand, continuing its international expansion despite a market slowdown. According to the company, which dominates its domestic market, the plant in Rayong, an industrial area southeast of Bangkok, will be able to build up to 150,000 vehicles a year. Shenzhen-based BYD's chief executive, Wang Chuanfu, said production would initially focus on full electric vehicles and later expand to include plug-in hybrids, which combine a conventional engine with an electric motor. Thailand has long been a major assembly hub for Japanese car makers, including Toyota and Honda, but is now seeking to shift production away from conventional vehicles and towards EVs. The kingdom has offered substantial tax breaks for companies as it aims for 30% of its car production to be EVs by 2030. BYD overtook Elon Musk's Tesla in the fourth quarter of last year to become the world's top seller of electric vehicles. Tesla reclaimed top spot in the first quarter of this year, but BYD is bullish about its expansion, insisting last month it would press ahead with a second factory in the European Union. Coming up in our foreign segment, polls open across UK in high-stakes vote. Britons voted in a general election widely expected to emphatically return the opposition Labour Party to power and end nearly a decade and a half of Conservative rule. Voting began at 7 a.m. local time in more than 40,000 polling stations across the country, from church halls, community centres and schools to more unusual venues such as pubs and even a ship. The country's first national ballot since Boris Johnson won a landslide for the Tories in 2019 follows Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's surprise call to hold it 6 months earlier than required. His gamble looks set to backfire spectacularly, with polls throughout the 6-week campaign and for the last 2 years pointing to a heavy defeat for his right-wing party. That would almost certainly put Labour leader Keir Starmer in Downing Street as leader of the largest party in Parliament. Centre-left Labour is projected to win its first general election since 2005 by historic proportions, with a flurry of election eve polls all forecasting its biggest ever victory. Polls also suggest voters will punish the Tories after 14 years of often chaotic rule and could oust a string of government ministries, with talks that even Sunak himself might not be safe. Over in South Korea, hundreds of patient rights advocates gathered today to urge physicians to halt a prolonged strike that has affected public health services. Thousands of trainee doctors stopped working in February, protesting against government plans to increase medical school quotas, which they say will affect the quality of specialist education. The strike has caused disruptions in hospitals and forced delays or cancellations of key treatments, including chemotherapy. In May, the government finalized an admission quota hike of around 1,500 for medical schools for 2025. Which it says will tackle shortages of doctors and rapidly aging population. Senior doctors and medical professors at some of the nation's key medical institutions recently joined the indefinite walkout in solidarity. Doctors at some of the country's largest medical facilities have also suspended outpatient treatments and non-emergency surgeries. We now move to China, who is facing hotter and longer heat waves and more frequent and unpredictable heavy rain as a result of climate change, as the world's second biggest economy braces for another scorching summer. The China Meteorological Administration warned that maximum temperatures across the country could rise by 1.7 to 2.8 degrees Celsius within 30 years, with eastern China and northwestern region of Xinjiang set to suffer the most. Last year, average national temperatures hit a new high, leading to record levels of glacial retreat and melting permafrost in the northwest. China describes itself as one of the world's most climate-vulnerable countries, as it is coming under increasing pressure to adapt to rapidly changing weather patterns and sea levels that are rising faster than the global average. The Weather Bureau said it expects temperatures in most areas across China to be relatively high over the next few months, signaling a second consecutive summer of extreme heat. Torrential rains and floods are already battering the south, and temperatures have broken records in several parts of north and central China, threatening crops and putting pressure on electricity grids. That concludes this evening's Malaysia Tonight. In our top story, upholding Islamic ethics, the right way forward for Madani Nation. Do tune in to World Today coming up tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. on TV2. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. My name is Darryl Baptist. Thank you for watching. Now it's back to you wherever you may be. Good night.